This article, I meant to talk about this, but then I saw this article, and it's exactly what I was thinking about. And basically, it's basically talking about don't follow your dreams. It's basically the theme of this article. And let's read the title. Kevin O'Leary's dad told him not to follow his passion. He's glad he listened. So I wanted to speak on how, should you follow your dreams, right? Or pursuing your passion. And Kevin O'Leary, I guess I think he has a TV show or something, and obviously a successful entrepreneur. But I wanted to talk about this issue. It's something I've thought of, and it's a hard question because on the one hand, young people, they feel like they can conquer the world, and in a way that's true, right? But because young people have so much energy, and they actually love. Most young people have a love for things, a love for, or I mean to say, not for things, but for a love of life. Believe it or not, like just and the issue is, I don't even necessarily think this is a consequence of following your dreams. To be honest, I don't think it's a consequence of the actual act of whether you do something or don't. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is that the way our economy is structured, it almost prohibits you from experimenting and going too far. I mean, unless, and even if you do have money, right? Even if your parents can help you out, or even if you have, disposable income or an inheritance or whatever, even then it's still a bad idea. Because of the way our economy works, it almost punishes that level of creativity. It doesn't really allow for people to, pursue their dreams in that way, because you're going to get left behind. For almost all of us, there is a huge loss of opportunity that comes if you just basically play around. Because really, when you think about it, pursuing your dreams, it's kind of like playing. And it's not a bad thing. Obviously you're developing a skill and you could monetize that. But is it really the best way? And does it even make sense, right? At the beginning, for most people who are, you're starting off, maybe you just graduated high school, what do you do, right? Do you follow your dreams, or do you go to college, or do you start working, or do you, start, a business plan? And so let me just read here a little bit. As a teenager, he did all he could to follow his dreams of becoming a photographer. There was one issue: his father didn't approve. He said, "You're not good enough and you'll starve to death." O'Leary said in a video posted to X, he said, "You should go to college and get a degree." And I went on to do an MBA, which ended up being a very important tool for me later. Now, the thing is, I think it's interesting how O'Leary's dad straight up told him that he's not good enough, right? Which is it's pretty honest. But basically he was saying, the father didn't even believe that he had the talent. I mean, that's basically what, he was being brutally honest. I mean, it's like when you meet someone who, wants to be an actor, and then, somebody gives you the honest advice, like, you're not a good actor. Like, and in a way, as weird as it sounds, it's almost as if his father would have said to him that even after all these years, that you're probably never going to be good enough, almost. It almost gives that impression. And I don't want to say that that's always the case, but, that is a reality, right? Like, the ability to have someone tell you straight up, hey, you're kind of not good at this. I know you like this, you're passionate about this, but you're just not good enough. You're not a good enough singer. You can't sing and you're wanting to be a singer, or, you want to pursue art, but you can't make art, right? Sometimes people want to do something and it feels like you can do it, but the talent isn't there. And even if you try to get it, it almost seems like you probably won't make it anyway. I mean, it's kind of a harsh thing to say. I don't know if I would say that to someone else, right? To be able to honestly say that. But, I mean, the thing is, in some ways, there's a risk if someone sets off and says, I'm going to follow my dreams, there's this big risk that you do something and you feel it, but you never actually make progress. And so it always just stays a dream. And there's something about dreams and about talent that really gets in the way of reality, that sometimes it almost seems as if, and I don't know if you've had this experience, but in my case, for example, there have been times where I try to do something and I almost don't see progress. Or sometimes I have seen progress, but a lot of times you'd be surprised how often I pick something up and I become okay at it, but I never get good at it. And even if I keep wanting to, I keep going back to it and I still don't, I don't know, it feels as if in life there are times where you have to admit that you can only get so good at something. But maybe that's not really the issue. But I think it's interesting to note that a lot of times, I don't even necessarily, it may be because I just don't put enough time, right? Like maybe, I remember, I'll just give a few examples, right? So when I was young, I would think like, oh man, maybe I could be a painter someday, right? Now I've never drawn, but sometimes you have this idea in your head. And I mean, in theory, yeah, I probably could, but if I mathematically look at what I do, I don't have enough time to learn how to do it, And so, you want to be leery, no pun intended, you want to be leery about any ideas that, first off, you don't have any experience in, but maybe that it would take too long, that you wouldn't have enough time in your lifetime to learn it. But, I mean, those are all practical ways of looking at this. But I wanted to focus also on the idea that, for me, I think it's quite possible for someone to learn anything, but what it takes to be a great artist, in my view, is something that hopefully you're able to recognize in yourself, because if not, a level of introspection is needed, because it's possible for you to think, let's say, like you need to be able to assess yourself. Like, are you actually good at this or not? And can you realistically get good at this? And that requires a lot of honesty. Like what exactly are you good at? Are you good at just thinking about it? Because sometimes the thought of something is more compelling, and then when you actually sit down and do it, you're completely lost. Now, I will say, so let me just talk about this, and then I'll talk about why, my thoughts on dreams. But, the thing is, you can learn anything. So if there's one thing that I've learned, if you set a program, you can teach yourself anything. And I truly believe that you can become good at something. So I don't think that's the issue. I kind of disagree with this idea. Like, you can learn how to do something, but whether or not you reach a level of creativity that surpasses what the average person can do, that's what is at question. And to me, a lot of skills don't actually require something. A lot of skills are just, like, for example, drawing. Once you learn how to draw, you know how to draw. But, learning how to, I don't think that's too much of an issue, but then learning how to, for example, make music, that's different. Because now it's not just about playing music, it's about coming up with melodies. And that's kind of that's not really something you can practice. Practice coming up with good melodies, writing good songs. That's not something that is really even taught. Like, it's almost something that's not teachable. It's just something that kind of comes out of, the greatest musicians, Mozart, the greatest composers, John Williams, right? It just comes out of their head. And so you need to do that self-assessment and realize, could you ever actually do that? And I think that's a personal thing. I don't think anybody else can judge you on that because they can't see what you're capable of, and only you know what you're capable of. And so you need to be able to assess yourself. The other thing I was going to say is that when it comes to following your dreams, the issue, I think, for me anyway, that's bigger is that we don't have, sometimes you don't have enough time. Like, you don't have, well, not just enough time, but you don't have the money. Like, you need the money to survive. And this is why I wanted to read this article, is because it kind of talks about this idea that a better approach to life in our modern world is to first get the money, and make sure that you are financially stable, and then try to follow your dream alongside. In other words, you have to take care of yourself first. Like, you can't just pursue your dreams and then, it comes at a very heavy cost. And you could spend 5, 10 years, you could lose 2, 3, 5 years, and even more pursuing a dream, and then you're not making money. You're losing money when you're doing that. And not only that, but you're behind. You're behind, and you kind of need to own a house. You have to have a place to stay. You have to have, like, there's a lot of things you have to organize in your life. And the issue is, maybe if our society was different, maybe if we lived in, like, in caveman times, and we could just sit around in huts, and you had all the time in the world to follow your dreams. Like, you could probably be the best actor, or be the best singer, or whatever, or pursue another dream, right? Like, start a business, or, well, obviously a cave person wouldn't do that, but I think you get what I mean. You would have time to get good at whatever. And in today's world, a lot of times when people say pursuing your dream, usually they're talking about going after something that's not marketable, right? And so the idea is that maybe that it's just an essential part of life that you need to take care of yourself, and you have to think about how to survive in this world, and that should be a priority over a dream. Because if you don't, obviously you're gonna get behind, right? And you're unprepared for life, and so it doesn't, and it's just a big risk to take. And for most people, it's either gonna take too long or it's never gonna happen. And even if it does take long, like, you're still gonna need to fall back and have that security that a good job would give you. And so that has to be a part of a person's life. It's highly recommended that it becomes a part of your life. So O'Leary has previously, I'm reading again, explained why he thinks an MBA, which costs $231,000. Okay, so let me skip on here. So photography still played a key role in his life. After graduating, the first company he started, Special Event Television, was a production company focused on sports entertainment. So O'Leary says, it was my attempt to get back to the thing I love, which was photography and production, and make money doing it. O'Leary said in the X video, there was that science and that art coming together in my life. And so this basically it says that, it was a pretty good strategy, because O'Leary, he says that he just worked, basically. He worked, he forgot about his dream, he became a successful person, and then afterwards, he tried to get into it again. Now, I'm pretty sure that it's not the same. He probably forgot about it, and that might be tragic to think about, but he probably forgot about it. But even so, he still was able to bring it back in. But, when I look at this, I don't think he was never able to fulfill the life that he wanted, right, to be a photographer. So, and it still doesn't. And he probably doesn't seem to think that that's that important anymore. Or maybe he lost his passion. I don't know. But the point is, it still influences what he does, right? It's still, and so sometimes, even though your passions, they find a way to come back into your life. Because, and this reminds me of Steve Jobs, where, because he took a calligraphy class, and he was able to, when he was making computers later on, he took a calligraphy class in college, and then when he became CEO and when he started his company, he was able to bring calligraphy into the Apple computer. And so that kind of thing, that's the kind of synergy that you can bring, where you bring, whatever it is. Everyone has different random things that they think about and that their life is connected to, or that's connected to their lives, and that's kind of what photography became for O'Leary. Now, in my view, I would say don't, should you follow your dreams? I think in this video, I wanted to talk about how, maybe, it's hard for me to say because obviously, yes, it's possible that you could succeed following your dream, if you're good. But my question is, even if, to seriously consider, for most people, my suggestion would be it's best not to follow your dream, because it will cost you your life. It'll cost you your youth, because usually it's when you're young that this happens, and it will cost you money. It will cost you money. It will cost you time, and that's opportunity that you could have used to be more stable. And and not only that, but you could always do it later on. But of course, it's tragic because you're older now, right? It's, if you wait longer, right, it takes you you buy a house, or you spend a lot of time studying, and you do everything you're supposed to do. It could be 10 years until you become stabilized to a point where you're making money and where you're somewhat financially stable, and by then you're probably tired. And isn't that the tragedy of life? And so I guess I can't really say what you should do, but for most people, just by the law of averages, just by based on what makes sense for most people, you want to take care of yourself first, and then maybe you can come back to it. But even then, you'll probably be tired, and it won't be the same. And so, but the thing is, you probably wouldn't have won anyway, even if you followed your dream. And so, it's really hard. It's a really hard decision to make for most people. Or maybe another alternative would be to just do both at the same time. And now that's hard to do, but in other words, keep it in the back burner. But you have to take care of yourself. That's kind of the problem, I guess, if you want to say. But that's just how life is. I guess maybe life has always been that way. You still have to maintain yourself and do sort of the day-to-day activities that are required for you to survive. Okay, you need to be able to pay bills. You need to get yourself in a position where you can take care of yourself, and that takes years. And that's part of being a successful person. And I think you'll learn a lot about yourself when you do that. So that process of becoming an adult is an essential part of life. And for most people, like, that is the best choice, just from a survival standpoint. It's not even about the passion, believe it or not. And I wish we lived in a world where maybe it wasn't like that, but and even then, I don't know if it would make that much of a difference. And at the end of the day, for the few people that are extraordinarily talented, you're just going to ignore this advice. And in that case, if you are extremely talented, then I would say, obviously, go ahead and pursue it. But it's just hard. I guess you have to make that self-assessment. And if an opportunity comes, take the opportunity. But first, I guess maybe what I would say is, if I could solidify this, I would say first try to take care of yourself, and then on the side. But see, a lot of times you can't do that though. A lot of times when you're working, you can only work. At least that's how I am. When I'm working, it's just work. Work has to be a priority, and so that means that you're barely gonna have time to pursue your dreams. Like it's a hard thing to do. But the reality is, it's your dreams or whatever. Anything that happens only happens when the opportunity comes. And so, and I guess what that means is that, and then of course you need to be prepared for when that opportunity comes. And so you're not gonna be able to prepare. So it's just a juggling act. I don't think there's an answer. But for most people, the dream is a dream. It's probably something that you're not really that good at, and it's probably a mirage, and it's probably something that it's not exactly as you think that it will be. And so that's why, most people that I've talked to, they've actually told me the same thing. Most successful people, they've told me that you shouldn't follow your dreams and to just take care of yourself, almost as if to say that most people are gonna have to live normal lives. And then, if you are extraordinary, I guess you'll know, and hopefully when the time comes, you'll be able to, you're gonna have to make the sacrifices. But in the meantime, before that happens, at least get yourself in a position where you have some form of stable job, some form of stability, and a place to stay, and you have somewhat of an organization, so that you're not completely lost. Because otherwise, that's you can't survive, right? If you don't have a job and you don't have marketable skills, it's not really a good position to be in. You're basically starting off from zero when you could have done something for yourself, and then in the meantime, or maybe later on, pursue what it is that you were trying to do. So those are my thoughts, and thank you for watching.